Hello, my name is Carlos Silva. I'm the sports editor here at the Lubbock Avalanche-Journal, doing this spot here for Austin Watts to let him know that I've been covering Texas Tech basketball the last 3 years with Chris Beard and company, a little bit of Tubby Smith, and then before that, I've been covering basketball for about 6 years during my journalistic career up until I have been here at the Lubbock Avalanche-Journal, starting from my days at the Silver City, New Mexico newspaper all the way up to here in Lubbock, Texas. 6 or 7 years ago, back when I was at the college paper, the Prospector at UTEP, was covering the old Miners of UTEP, the women's team for UTEP. I was covering them with Keith Adams and company. That's when I first started. I want to say that was like my first story that was in the newspaper there, in the college paper, and then from there, I just kind of moved on from UTEP. And then when I was at Odessa, I was covering Odessa College, Odessa High, Permian every once in a while. And then when I got to San Angelo, I was covering Division II, which was Angelo State, women's and men's. I don't think we had any other teams that we covered there. And then obviously here at Texas Tech, covering them, South Plains College every once in a while. And I believe I covered one Wayland Baptist game. So that's really kind of where that all went. Was here when Tubby was here, but it was at the tail end of it. Krista Pirtle, who was our previous writer there at the time when we had a bigger staff, was covering that. So that's really where it was. She kind of covered it for a little bit. And then once she left, I was kind of moved into the spot when Chris Beard kind of came in. So I guess things kind of worked out in a sense, but I believe she covered Beard for like a season before I actually started covering men's basketball. So, but I mean, for the most part, I've been here since he's been here, and I was here about the tail end of Tubby Smith's tenure here at Tech. I think the one thing you can look at is that Chris Beard really cares about building a foundation and a program. He's done it at every spot that he's done, and the only way he knows how to do it is getting it done that year, whether that means having to retool a whole roster, bringing in 8 new guys, which I believe he did that first year, and then all of a sudden you kind of see him kind of do it year after year, whether or not it's good or not for the game, I don't know, but certainly I think he's got a very, very good process that he's followed. Obviously this year they only have one signee, Jalen Tyson, because they've got so many returning guys and so many guys that you can kind of foresee staying another year. Terrence Shannon could potentially leave, but I mean, the one thing that you have to look at with Chris Beard is he knows what he wants, he knows what he needs, and the thing that he always looked for when he first got here or at McMurray or at Angelo State is that he's looking for guys that can dribble, pass, and shoot, and that's what he would call talented players. And then from there, he looks for guys that are kind of wiry, long, that can kind of get into the passing lanes, deflect some things, and that really kind of starts their offense from their defense. And certainly you've seen that with Mark Adams and his way that he's kind of done his defense with the way that he kind of keeps the ball from the middle to where that allows a opposing offense to really kind of start some things. If you keep them to the side, you kind of already dictate the way that the defense is going to be played because you know all the angles and all the passing angles and where the ball can go. So I guess to answer your question, certainly when you kind of look at what the previous records were at Tech, you can say that things have gotten a lot better, especially with the way that Chris Beard has taken this team to the national title. Was about 22 seconds away from actually claiming the first one for Texas Tech, and not only Texas overall as a state. But I think the one thing he's done is he's built a culture, a process, and all these other things that have allowed, one, for them to be good 1 year, but then for them to be good for future times, which is why he's got a contract extension. That's why he's been here for so long. I want to say it's the longest he's stayed at any place so far other than maybe Angelo State. So certainly he's brought in good talent because he's been here for so long. And then, of course, the winning brings with it more eyes and ears, and certainly you've seen that with some of the 5 stars that he's kind of brought in as well. So it all starts with winning. He was able to get a couple of wins that first year, but I think that run to the first NCAA Elite 8, I think really helped bring in more talent and more players that he felt that could elevate the program even higher. I would say the struggle is I would actually stay up probably later than I should, even though people think, I mean, I'm obviously not saying that I'm watching every team, but I did a very good job of at least watching the teams that I voted for and knew who I was looking at. I think the other struggle was just based on the way that the business was going. I was getting more things put on to me And it just got to a point where it's just like, is this really worth it to me? And that was really the biggest thing that kind of, it came down to me not wanting to vote anymore. It's just like, I didn't get as much out of it as I thought I would for all the amount of work that I do. Because I mean, as some people think, I mean, yeah, there were times I made mistakes, and certainly I owned up to them. But I think that the one thing that I can say is I know for sure if I did vote a team on my top 25 or anywhere else, I did watch them. I did look up their stats, or kind of however you feel fit to kind of do it. My biggest thing was that there were just so many parameters as to how you could vote someone. And I think that's the other thing that really kind of bugged me a little bit was no matter what you did, there was always someone that was always going to be on your case, which doesn't bug me because I have a thick skin. But I think that the thing for me was just personally, it was taking away a lot of time from my personal life to where Sunday nights were more me studying and kind of getting all that stuff done for the AP vote, which was due Monday morning. And then from there, it just seemed like the rest of my week was just, I was just tired because I would stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning, just kind of getting all that stuff done to make sure that I felt like I kind of put in a good vote, whether or not people agreed with it, obviously up to them. But I just felt it was just a lot of time and energy that I put in for 2 years. I enjoyed it for that amount of time, but I think now I'm in a different part of my life. And I think that's something that I just don't need right now, unfortunately. I think any game that they've played against Kansas has always been good. I mean, frankly, I think Allen Fieldhouse is probably one of the best venues I've been at in terms of just how loud it is, how engaged the fans are in there. So I think that's always fun. Probably the games at Madison Square Garden that Texas Tech has played against Seton Hall, and then of course Louisville, where they actually got the victory against the number one team in the country. I thought that one was probably maybe second, just in terms of the way the game was played. So many people were watching it. Obviously, it was an upset, so certainly you have that. And then, of course, they won. Obviously, the national championship. You can't really compare that because that's the last game. That's the only game. Everyone's going to be focused on it. But I think in terms of just secondary, I would say anything against Kansas and Texas Tech because I think that's a budding rivalry, even though Chris Beard won't admit it. I think that one's a good one. Anytime they've played in Madison Square Garden or New York City, I think that's always been a good one. Granted, they lost one to Seton Hall, but that one against Louisville was certainly a memorable one. I mean, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's surreal to think that I was covering Jarrett Culver when he was in middle school at some point. Well, not necessarily covering him in middle school, but I knew of him in middle school. I mean, coaches would always talk about him, and then all of a sudden you see this tall, lanky kid who I can tell you this story. He's the first kid I've ever seen dunk in high school. So that's the one reason that I'll always remember Jarrett Culver was he just had a one-handed dunk, and I was just like, oh, okay, so athletic now. So um, just following him throughout that, I think that's helped me develop a relationship with him. Not to say that we're like texting buddies or anything, but it's always nice when he does remember me or just says, hey, Carlos, what's up? Or whatever, whenever there's like an event here when he comes back and he just kind of recognizes me. Um, Same thing with Zaire and kind of the other guys too. Jemias, maybe not to that degree, just because I felt like I wasn't there as much as I probably should have been. But certainly those guys are certainly special in that when you see their names, you kind of remember the person they are, not necessarily the athlete they are. At least that's how I think of it, just because I remember all the times where we're talking in a hallway or something else. It's not necessarily, oh, yeah, I remember him doing this or this, which I do remember some of their athletic accolades, obviously. But I think that the one thing that I'll always remember about Jared was he's the first kid that I ever saw dunk in high school. And then just the fact that we'd always kind of keep a little rapport during my time covering him.